Okay, so with that, we'll continue with our program. So we'll still continue with our D2 panel. So I'd like to invite Louise Watts, and she's our study committee, she's our Australian panel convener for information systems and telecommunications.
Okay, good morning. So as Angela says, I'm the convener for D2, Louise Watts, and I'm here today to summarise our local and global activities for 2022 and present to you some of the trends that we're seeing across our panel as well. So I've been working in the utilities space for just a little over a decade now, which is relatively short, I think, in this industry. But before I get into things, I just want to paint you a picture of what things were like for telecommunications just 10 years ago, when our complete management systems were sitting there on old desktop PCs that were running Windows XP. Hopefully none of you have that anymore. We're rolling out our core network, which was circuit-based TDM technology, which even at the time was considered legacy in the IT world. We're rolling out 3G networks, and cybersecurity was only just emerging when Stuxnet happened in 2010, and we just really began those discussions. And as Tree said, we had power generators and transformers sitting there that were, 40 years old at the time. So fast forward just 10 years later, and those power generators and transformers are still sitting there 50 years old. Obviously they come with their own challenges, but the utility space is very different for communications. Our applications now, some of which are artificial intelligence and machine learning, and they run those sort of algorithms, now run on virtualised infrastructure. In some places, even in the cloud. We're working from home more than ever, mainly thanks to the pandemic, and remote accessing our systems. So cybersecurity is becoming critical. It's now governed in many countries as well. And as you hopefully are aware, anything connected to a network is now vulnerable to a cyber threat and needs to be properly controlled. We're venturing into the Internet of Things, which we're kind of already doing, but we're looking...
Sorry for interrupting.
We're looking at fully controlled everything, and we're seeing migrations to packet-based technologies in the grid and differential teleprotection services across these as well. And communications is enabling that transition, and this is why, in my opinion, I believe that the focus of D2 is so important to the modern utility. So our purpose is to promote the exchange and sharing information in the field of information systems and telecommunications. We've got three main areas of study. Information technology systems, which studies the applications that support asset management, and this includes big data and IoT, telecommunications networks, services and technology, and cybersecurity issues at all levels from the field through to corporate IT. At this year's SIG-RACE session, we had 49 papers, including 2 from Australia, accepted across our 3 preferential subjects shown here. This resulted in 26 special reporter questions and 49 contributions to our general meeting. So we explored the technology and the opportunities and challenges of emerging technologies, and we focused on the area of IoT technologies and architectures, artificial intelligence, big data and analytics tools, and augmented and virtual reality. And the main applications of AI are load forecasting, asset management and automated electricity markets. And there was also an interesting application of a 4-legged robot that can be used for remote asset management and inspections, and some promising use cases around augmented reality that can be used for training purposes and also to improve the accuracy and safety of maintenance tasks. We considered cybersecurity challenges, the directives, standards and certification schemes associated with those, cyber incident management and experience in the security operations centres, impact assessments and mitigation strategies. And globally, there's a lack of consolidated approach to cybersecurity across all the parties involved in utility networks, and the standards are at a level that can be misinterpreted. So we're really seeing a need for guidance on the implementation of those standards. The importance of mitigation and incident response to a potential cyber threat was highlighted, And in some governments, including Australia, they have set up emergency response teams to assist utilities with their recovery. So governments are really starting to take cybersecurity within critical infrastructure really seriously, and we're seeing that with the new Security of Critical Infrastructure Act that the Australian government just released as well. And our final theme was around building agile and resilient communications. So the migration to packet-based technologies, and in particular supporting differential protection over those, continues to be a focus for most utilities globally. Utilities are also starting to explore 5G technology and the potential applications for that, such as high bandwidth applications for video and high resolution imaging, virtual reality applications that require a high bandwidth but also a low latency. But we're also starting to see some testing of teleprotection and system control over 5G networks. So there is a subset of 5G called ultra reliable low latency communications that can support this. And that's enabled by software-defined networks that can actually slice the network up into multiple portions for private provisioning, security and quality of service. At the SIGRACE session, we had working group D252 present a tutorial on artificial intelligence and technology in power systems. And it highlighted the progress that AI has made in recent years, and even today many utilities are already using artificial intelligence for several applications such as load and renewable forecasting, drone inspection, image recognition, cyber security, and even in customer service. We delivered a workshop on the standardisation of cyber security, and this was a joint workshop between IEC, IEEE and SIGRACE. And it discussed the need for that clear and consolidated standards across utilities, manufacturers and the regulators. And so as well as the SIGRACE session, we also had some involvement in the Kyoto Joint Symposium and the Vienna CERT Conference, where we presented tutorials on energy resource management and cybersecurity management. Australian Victor Tan, who's now the chair for D2, ran a tutorial on the newly published technical brochure on software-defined networks. And it's quite interesting to see some of the potential applications of SDN in power utilities, including the virtualisation of network infrastructure, allowing for centralised control and management of the network layer. And the advantages of SDN are ease of deployment, scalability and flexibility. And it'll be interesting to see as utilities do move to IP networks whether they also start to adopt SDN as well, which would be quite a big step forward. We've got several publications this year in the Future Networks and Electra, again around 5G network applications and cyber security. We had an Electrica article written describing the results of our survey on the current state of telecoms in the power industry, and it really showed that there's a wide range of telecommunications technologies that are used, which is to be expected, and also highlighted that the majority of respondents do plan to decommission their TDM-based networks, addressing their obsolescence issues. We've also had 3 new working groups launched, and overall we've got 14 active working groups. A few were delayed due to COVID, so we should see some of those brochures being released over the next couple of years. And I think one was even released this week on synchronisation and timing. You can see from the titles here, there's similar themes presented in our working groups around AI technologies, augmented reality, energy resource management, next generation wireless and cyber security. Locally, our panel convened in February for a roundtable discussion about virtual power plants. So we had 3 speakers. I'm on the wrong. Yeah, that's right. We had 3 speakers talk about their virtual power plant projects and testing they're doing around wholesale integration of distributed energy resources, data exchange and local services exchange. And it was great to see the work that utilities are doing to deliver flexibility in providing network capacity so that customers can get the most out of their systems. And for us, it was also really interesting to see that it's being enabled by cloud-based IT technology and telecommunications. Our panel meeting this year was held virtually in July. The themes from the SIG race session flowed through to the panel, and we had 32 participants across the 2 days. So along with presentations from our 19 panel members, we had a couple of online workshops, and we also had guest speakers across our different themes. And synchronisation and timings become very important as we move to IP. And we had Jim Olsen from Microchip who gave a presentation on the different types of timing and the applications of these. Jonathan Thompson from SA Power Networks gave a really well-received presentation on the current cyber threats to critical infrastructure, and some of these include things like phishing, ransomware, and supply chain compromise that we're seeing a lot more of as well. Aligning to the cybersecurity theme, we had Nathan Clark from AusNet who described their development of their Security Operations Centre and also their uplift in their event monitoring. And we had some presentations on 5G applications and network management systems. Locally, these are the trends and topics that panel members are most concerned about at the moment. So there's in wireless networks, the decommissioning of 3G, seeing a number of utilities needing to upgrade thousands of modems and devices to 4G and 5G capable devices. And they're currently working to a date of mid-2024 for that decommissioning. And in some cases, they're finding that the coverage isn't quite the same as what the 4G coverage was, the 3G coverage was. So it's creating some extra challenges there for them. Utilities are working on proof of concepts around IoT, mostly around asset management use cases and low voltage management data. And the focus to the transition of packet-based technologies that we're seeing globally is also really relatable in Australia and New Zealand, and we're seeing more urgency around this transition as well. And most utilities are considering MPLS for that transition at the moment. Supply chain issues are a major problem, as they would be across the board. Deliveries are just taking significantly longer, and we're having a really big impact on planning. There's obviously lots of conversations around cybersecurity. In Australia, many utilities have adopted the Australian energy sector cybersecurity framework and are currently benchmarking themselves for maturity level against that. There's also quite a bit of work happening around the IEC 62243 standard for cybersecurity within substations as well. And their members have quite a bit of other work going on with some major asset replacements underway as well. So in 2023, we will have another virtual roundtable, most likely around network management systems and automation, possibly 5G. And our panel meeting will align with the CAN Symposium in September. And we're looking forward to that opportunity to meet with other D2 participants from internationally. So that finishes my overview of our local and global trends and activities, and hopefully you've got a better idea of what's happening in information systems and telecommunications. Thank you.